Howdy, all you delicious people! I'm here to review Black Rain, a detective film or a cop movie that is to go on and remind me of stuff like Rush Hour or Showdown in Little Tokyo, or also to remind me of like The Replacement Killers, or also like the show The Good Girls, that kind of deals with money printing, which eventually will be how this movie plays out, as well as also to be fairly similar to I feel, the Jean Claude movie, Knockoff. So, Black Rain gives us Michael Douglas, who has played Nicky in this movie, who is to be this detective who is a dirty cop and is to go on and give people headbutts and work outside the law and do whatever he needs to do to get his man by the end of this film, because he, of course, is to have caught him in the early stages of this movie to then have to re-catch him. And there is to be a whole mistake between that time that leads him to then need to catch this guy again. But so during that time, we have Nicky's character that goes from New York to Japan, and we end up getting to see a lot of wonderful visual backgrounds because I love this kind of culture. And this then leads us to these, even though very stereotypical action environments being placed our hero in, because I'm like, man, like we seriously get like a meat packing plant in the beginning of this. We get like a boiler room situation towards the later half of this film, and like so much about this is just like, man, this is just so like much the stereotypical action film. And this movie is fairly long-winded, and also there's actually some good one-liners that come through this movie too. Like I like how Nicky turns uh to Masahiro and tells him, it's like, man, when I want to get effed, I want to get kissed first. And then Moss is like, huh? As he turns to Charlie, and Charlie's like, yeah, he wants foreplay. And also, there's another line that kind of comes later in the film where Michael or Nicky is talking to Joyce here and ends up talking about her being afraid. And there's like a good one liner that comes out of that. But so, when going through this film, uh, this is just an interesting manhunt movie that has Nicky teaming up with his partner Charlie, and then by the end of the film, both Moss, a hero, and Nicky are kind of partnered together. And really, this is just an interesting, fun piece if you just need 2 hours to kill. I thought that this movie was a okay to solid okay film. I really did enjoy it just based on visuals. It kind of reminded me also of like Mission Impossible 2 in some ways, with the whole motorcycle things and like just some of the stuff that it tries to like just approach in this film. And really just thought it was good enough because I'm not much of a cop movie person, but I've seen so many of them because I've just kind of ending up just kind of seen everything at some points in my life. So with that said, where can you go on and see Black Rain? As I'm going to need 2 hours to go on and hopefully try to break this movie down as quickly as possible. There is a huge, hefty amount of dialogue through this film that I'm going to, in some ways, try to figure out how to quickly cut all the way through. So I'm going to rush as much as possible to cut through a lot of this film when I get into the full-on spoilers. So if you feel that you're not getting enough, then by guff, you should probably go on and actually watch this whole entire film and enjoy it for what it is, because I'm going to try to cut through as much as I can to get this video done as quickly as possible. So, and where can you say that you can go on and do so? Well, you can go on to an app called Zelifonic, Zelivonic. If you are a mobile user and have a Google Play Store, you can go through and find Zelifonic to find this movie and more for absolutely free. You can also go through an app called Moopzy, Moopzzi. These two apps can dare in fact help you watch Black Rain for absolutely free, because I don't know what else there are to be probably apps through Google that you can maybe get a subscription or rent this movie for whatever a number of dollarinos if you are so inclined to do so. So Black Rain, I'm going to go on and push into spoilers because logically, I'm sure there could be a number of minutes of things that I probably could rattle off and go on and say about this film. But really, I should actually just push into spoilers about this movie because that's all I really want to go on and do at this point. So that said, let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we can spoil this movie. I'm going to go on and pause this here quickly so that way I can get out all of my cast list and notes and things and whatever that I need to go on and do to talk about this with you. There is obviously going to be, to me, not a good enough cast list or not enough good enough amount of things to know who everyone's name is in this film. So by golly, I'm going to try my best to figure out ways to talk about this film at some points. But anyways, let's pause here and let me get all that out. And we're back. So, in the very beginning of this, we of course have scenery shots. Because for every single movie that we've kind of seen throughout our lives, there's always those scenery shots that show us, like, the world of New York. So, Michael is to make his way into this area where there seems to be a bunch of bikers that are present. And Michael is going on and racing off against this guy. And weirdly enough, we have a guy named Frankie who's played by Luis Guzman. Well, I'm not quite sure if his voice is to be dubbed over or not in this movie, but it sounds like it is. So, Nikki goes up against this biker who is just called the Kid, and they race. And what ends up happening here is Nikki ends up taking this jump and landing, and the Kid ends up going on and like pancaking his bike, and we would then go on to then have the Kid meeting up with Nikki, as Nikki has obviously won, and being like, "Man, you're a wacko," and Nikki's like, "Oh yeah, well, where's my money?" So Nikki makes his way back home to find out that there are some messages on his machine. One of them being his ex-wife telling him that they seemingly are a month to 3 months behind on these payments, and that either way, like, Nikki needs to somehow magically come up with money to deliver him, as well as also that she is going on and taking the kids to her mother's this weekend, and then she will of course give the kids to him next weekend. So Nikki then gets an answering machine from his attorney, going on and telling him like, well, yeah, like, Nikki, you need to go on, you need to dress nice, you need to go on and you need to be nice to these guys, or otherwise, like it's gonna hurt you if you don't. So he's like, see you at 10. So Nikki goes on to meet up with his kids that are going on, and they're bickering about how one of the kids was rude to someone named Elizabeth. So Nikki goes on and hugs them and has one of his kids like go on his bike, and then the kid disappears. The next thing we end up seeing is Nikki is with Charlie, and then the kid has just disappeared. I'm like, okay, what the heck? So Nikki, being on his motorcycle, is revving up his motorcycle as Charlie is getting on his coat, and he's like, Toro and Toro. And like, it's kind of really interesting in this movie how much is like foreshadowed, as we see the scene later on in the film, and this will actually cost Charlie his life, interestingly enough. So Nikki knows that this is all playing around, and so Nikki goes and races Charlie as Charlie ducks, and then Charlie gets onto the motorcycle and is telling Nikki, it's like, oh hey, like, like, hey man, don't worry about internal affairs. Just show him your breast bars. Uh, like, like you're really like an established cop, and like you shouldn't have any worries about this internal affair thing. And we have a one point where it ends up saying like, grab your dick and count to infinity here. So uh, also, like, Nikki goes on and calls a lot of people babe in this film, and that just seemed kind of weird to me. But maybe that's just a terms of endearment, but still. Um, Nikki goes into his locker room and is talking to Oliver, and of course, Oliver is going on and telling Nikki, it's like, well, hey, keep your mouth shut, don't be running your mouth, like, uh, keep your wits about you. And Oliver is asking like Nikki, it's like, well, hey, do you know your lawyer? And Nikki's like, well, lawyer, hardly know him. So uh, but Oliver is making Nikki very concerned about this whole internal affair thing, because it's like, well, hey, like, if like you screw this up, like you'll probably put these internal affairs lawyer guys through kids through college. So uh, just go on and just try your best here. So Nikki meets with internal affairs, and they go on to at some point talk about how there was a 50 or $65 and change process through this one case, when in all actuality it was supposed to be 73,000. So there's a lot of money to have been lost from this case, and they want to go on and figure out what had happened here. And there had been an arrest of three suspects during this case. So eventually we do have Nikki that does go on and explode here. And because they're looking at Nikki and they're saying like, well, hey, like you're $1,000 in a hole. Like you have to be dirty. There has to be some reason why uh, we have you here, and they just kind of can't let that go. And they keep going on and they keep talking about dirty cops consistently. So after the whole Eternal Affair hearing, Nikki goes to this diner to meet up with Charlie. I want to call it like a diner, but it looks more like a bakery to me. But so as Nikki turns to Charlie and it's like, well, hey, like, what do you have? And Nikki's like, well, man, I really need a scotch. And Charlie's like, really, that bad? And Nikki's like, yeah, it went that bad. So Nikki and Charlie are just looking around here at this restaurant, and they find that there is a mob boss named um, Abia Atia. Um, let me get this up here. Uh, Abia Favio, and it seems that he is selling Subarus. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure he's selling more than Subarus. So, or Suburbans. Uh, and so Nikki turns to Charlie. It's like, oh man, like maybe we should get out of here, because maybe there's wiretaps all throughout this building, and somehow people are gonna connect that we're here and he's here, and we're gonna get more trouble than we already are. And they just kind of get a good laugh out of all this. So coincidentally, while this mob boss is to have some men around him that are actually to be Yakuza members. That ends up leading a guy named Sato, who is to also come into this establishment to kill these Yakuza members and open up one of the guy's blazers and take out this box. And that then leads to Nikki and Charlie's attention to whip out their guns to try and chase after Sato and try and catch him, which eventually leads to Sato getting in this car. Sato gets in this car accident with this meat truck, running to make his way to this slaughterhouse. I'm getting really ahead of myself, and try um, and get this guy at this meat packing facility. And so as Nikki and Sato end up squaring off here, Sato ends up stabbing Nikki in the eye here, and but eventually Nikki is to choke Sato, and then Charlie is to come in there, and then the rest of these police officers are to go on and grab Sato and take him to the precinct. So afterwards, as they look on at photos of the guys that Sato had killed, they find out that these guys are Japanese mob. It's like, well, of course they are. They're Yakuza members. And so they come to find out that there is some paper that's within this famous box that they saw that Sato had to grab and run off with. So Nikki turns to Charlie. It's like, well, I'm going to go on and I'm going to question this guy. And Charlie's like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to make some phone calls. So Nikki makes his way to where Sato is being interrogated to find out that there is not much that he can go on and question him with, simply because Sato won't go on and speak any English or Japanese, so it's kind of a fruitless endeavor. So Oliver is turning to Nikki here and saying that the Japanese embassy wants Sato, and Nikki's like, well, wait a minute, like, this is my caller, this is my guy, like, what are the Japanese want with Sato here? And so Oliver is telling Nikki, it's like, well, hey, yeah, like, this guy needs to get fly back to Japan, and you are going to be the one that's going to see this through, because, hey, man, like, this will get you away with all your problems of what's going on right now. Like, this will get you out of the hair of the internal affairs, and you'll just be doing this case. So that then leaves Nikki and Charlie to be flying southwest, or northwest. My bad, northwest. It was west. So Charlie and Nikki are talking on this plane with Sato in the middle, and they're talking about, like, man, like, you know how much it probably costs for this guy to get flown back to Japan? And Nikki's like, well, yeah, it probably would have cost him a lot less to buy the dirt to bury this guy. So Charlie asks Nikki about, like, well, hey, do you know the cop named Roman? And Nikki's like, well, yeah, he's a good cop. Like, he's a pretty decent cop. And he busts his ass 14 hours, and he ends up in debt up to his eyeballs. And they're talking about this cop because they're saying that there's suspicions that Ronan had gotten tempted, and Nikki's like, well, yeah, like, sometimes you get sacrificed. Like, sometimes you're looking at a guy like me, and like, and you're looking like a guy at Sato, and Sato has, like, um my house payments for clothes and this and that, and like just kind of looking at the two these people, it's like how has this gone so different? So Nikki is just kind of tossing these cards one by one to just have something to do. And Sato is looking at Nikki, and Nikki elbows Sato in the face. So this plane finally lands. So Nikki, Sato, and Charlie are to meet up with Japanese investigators. I believe his name is Inspector Nishida. Nishida goes on and gives Nikki and Charlie this paperwork that, of course, they can't read because it's in Japanese. And all this seems to look legit. So they go on and they hand Sato over, and they're thinking, all right, like, we're freaking tired as F. And, like, how about we go on and get some geishas and have a party and, like, and just have a good time. And then they come to find the real Inspector Yamato, and they're like, oh crap. So they try to go on and chase after Sato and these inspector guys, but it's far too late. So we then turn around and have Charlie and Nikki that is going to the Osaka uh, prefectural police department to go on and file their report, to go on and say that, hey, like, these guys were dressed up as officers, like, the paperwork that they gave us was all in Japanese. How did we know? How could we have? How could we tell? So Nikki is also calling his captain Oliver and like telling him what had happened. Also, they had just gotten hoodwinked, and so uh, and that there is no really way to verify their IDs and whatever, because how could they have known? So, as Charlie is to turn to some of these officers and none of them actually speak English, and like Charlie's asking, like, hey, do you have any coffee or anything like that? And so, as Masahiro is to get a phone call, Charlie is turning Nikki. It's like, hey, we're on. Let's go. Like, we need to follow this guy because we're gonna find out from his superior that we're gonna go on and be a part of this case, and we're gonna have to be forcibly observers, and that supposedly Masahiro is gonna supposedly do all the investigating, heavy lifting here, but it's gonna be quite the opposite. So as Nikki and Charlie make their way to Masahiro's superior, they're going on and they're talking about how, like, man, we can't wait to find a Japanese inspector that actually speaks any English here. And Masahiro turns to them. It's like, well, yeah, I am an inspector in this section, and I do speak effing English. So Nikki goes on to talk to Masahiro's uh, superior, and is mentioning how, like, were there any witnesses in that airport, and uh, that they're going on and like they're getting the runaround for every time they're to go on and ask these guys any questions. It's like, well, it's possible that, like, there were some witnesses. There's possible that these guys didn't do any real police work, and then Nikki and Charlie are just like, what? Like, so, and then further that they talk, the more that they come to find out more of these people can actually speak English, and so they're like, dude, we're like, it's just all defeating for them to just be talking to these people. So but the more and more they're also talking, they're like, dude, you need to understand, like, the two of us were so freaking jet lagged, and we're like, God, like, so, uh, if anything, like, Masahiro's superior is going on and being upset with Nikki and Charlie for their negligence because they had lost Sato, and Nikki turns to them. It's like, I'm sorry, like, we'll obviously take some of the, like, the qualms and the heat for, like, some of this, but, like, if anything, like, it's this is not going to be our entire fault. Like, how you guys just run around and just have, like, people who are, like, dressed up as you, and, like, so we're not going to take the rap for this. Like, we're not going to go on and just say that this is all of our faults. So, uh as well as also, like, they throw in their faces that it's like, yeah, this paperwork that they gave you is just some insurance policy. It's like, well, hey, like, uh so yeah, so, and here's where they go on, and so the superior guy is going on and telling both Nikki and Charlie that, like, okay, we're gonna have you guys are gonna find Sato. This is gonna be a case you're going to be involved in as observers, and Nikki gets so upset with the superior that it's like, you know what, like, we're gonna go on and we're gonna do this case together, and if you do not go on and work with me, like, you're gonna regret ever meeting me. You're gonna regret ever hearing my name coming into anyone's mouth to you and whatever. So, just intimidating this guy as much as possible to just be like, well, hey, like, we need to go on. You need to give me, like, the best foot forward on this, or, like, or there's going to be some problems here. As well as also, the superior is asking both the detectives to leave their guns because it's unlawful, because they are technically civilians in this environment, because this is technically not their jurisdiction to be holding onto guns. And so Charlie and Nikki do give up one of their guns. It's like, no, you need to give up all of them. So they end up agreeing. So they, the superior ends up handing over a detective that is going to be involved in Nikki and Charlie's case, and it ends up being Masahiro. And Masahiro says, like, well, it's an honor for me to work with you, even though it's like, dude, I freaking hate you, but I have to work with you freaking anyways. So, come to find out that there is a dead person that they have to go on to this nightclub and meet and greet with, as he's already dead. So, Masahiro makes his way to this club, as while Nikki is looking around, he's spotting this one woman who is to be wearing this very sequiny dress, and it's going to be foreshadowing this woman later, because she will go on and actually be involved in them needing to find her to find where Sato is. So they find this dead person, and this guy is to be one of the fake inspectors from earlier on. And so within this guy's mouth, they find seemingly money within it, and they kind of joke around about all this and about this dead guy. And so eventually, la, 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 the real important thing here is that Nikki goes on after talking to Masahiro, and Masahiro really isn't doing anything here. And here's where Nikki turns to Masahiro is like, well, hey, you know what? Like, if I want to go on and I want to get effed, like, I at least want to get kissed first. And Masahiro's like, what? And Charlie's like, yeah, foreplay. You don't know what foreplay is? So, as Nikki makes his way through the nightclub and is looking at some of the people within this nightclub, he meets up with Joyce, who's the only white woman in this entire club. She probably stands out, I'm sure. So Masahiro is looking to Charlie, and Masahiro is thinking that Nikki is gonna do something wrong here. And Charlie turns to Masahiro. It's like, well, hey, like, uh, he's not gonna break anything that he can't pay for. So just like, it's okay. Like, just let him do what he needs to do. So Nikki goes on and meets up with Joyce, who has a bloodstain on her dress, and starts to question her because she speaks English. So Nikki ends up asking Joyce how she got the blood, how she got the blood on her dress, and Joyce states that she had met with one of the girls and needed to comfort her because she had gotten very upset, and this girl had blood on her, so it got blood also on her dress. And Nikki's like, well, did you see the man um, that was involved in this whole case? And Joyce is like, well, yes, but like I didn't catch his name or his address, and like had him write this all over my dress of what his name and number was, so you can find him. So also, Nikki is asking Joyce about where she's from. She's from Chicago, and also Joyce knows Nikki from right away being on the newspaper for the blunder that he had gone on and done. It's like, man, you've already been here for one day and you're already on the news. Good for you. To where they foreshadow that towards the end of the film, where like um, where Nikki by the end of his time there in Japan, like he also makes the news again. So uh but Joyce is going on and consistently giving Nikki crap here to the point to where Nikki finally has to go on and point it out. And Joyce tells Nikki, it's like, well, I don't think you know what's really going on here. Like, there is actually uh, like a crime war going on here. And like, we find out later on in the film that like Joyce, she's choosing a side and it's her own side. So she's trying to go on and protect herself. So she doesn't want to go on and get involved with Nikki because that'll lead her to probably get killed by someone else. But so, but if anything, like Joyce is at least telling Nikki that between these two crime gangs or whatever, that there is a guy named Sato and also a guy named Sagai. And like they're at two opposite ends of the spectrum to create this war. And yeah, so and Nikki's like, well, who knows about this whole war thing? And Joyce is like, well, you and me, like 11 million people all know about it. You just are not knowing about it. So Masahiro goes on to then talk to Nikki about like, well, hey, like, what did you ask her about? And Nikki looks at Masahiro. It's like, I'm not telling you, like, dude, I'm just an observer. Like, if anything, uh, like, if I'm to go on and tell you any, like, we need an exchange of information here. Like, it just can't be just one-sided me having to help you. Like, that's not going to work. Like, we need to go on and help one another. And Nikki just calls Masahiro just a suit. He's not a cop. And just kind of throws everything that he possibly can at him. And so both Nikki and both Charles want nothing to do with Masahiro, so much so that they're willing to find out where the hotel that they're staying is and walk to it, because they just don't want Masahiro to drive them anywhere, because they don't trust him. So but if anything, Nikki is also calling the shots to Masahiro, like, well, hey, I want the full report on what happened here. Like, I want it all translated and everything by 9 o'clock tomorrow. So and Nikki goes on and says, like, well, hey, if we get lost somewhere in here, we'll call a cop. We won't call you. So Charlie and Nikki make their way through the town and, like, we have no idea where we're going. So the two of them start talking, and they're like, how is it that no one could have been bothered to fill us in on a simple gang war? And Charlie, I think, is really starting to warm up on Masahiro, and Nikki isn't. And so, come to find out, they're like 4 blocks away from this hotel, and they've already been walking for like 20 some odd minutes. And eventually, while they make their way, they find this huge biker gang that ends up having these scorpion flags upon their cycles. They start to continue to circle around both the inspectors, or both the detectives here, and this will be foreshadowing that later on that Nikki and Charlie will bump into these guys again, and this will lead to Charlie's death, sadly. So come to find out, Nikki and Charlie do get that report, and so they start hearing about how yeah. God, let me pause here for just a second. I have to scramble through a lot of this. Okay, so a lot of this dialogue here is to talk about the background of both Sato and Sagai, and how one another kind of knocking one another off. I kind of had to really just uh, skim a lot of this and break it down smoother. And so eventually, as Nikki and Charlie are hearing some kind of noise going on in the background, they start to investigate it to find out that there is a SWAT team that are rushing out of some part of the building. And Nikki and Charlie turn to Masahiro, and they end up asking him, it's like, well, what is this SWAT team doing? And Mas says that it's just some drill, it's just some exercise. And they're like, bullshit, like, tell me the truth. So Moss tells both Charlie and both Nikki that there is suspicions that there is to actually have a possibility that they are going to go on and Sato's last hideout, and that's what the SWAT is going to. And so they're like, oh, hey, yeah, a tip? Yeah, just the tip. Oh, yeah, just the tip. So, and Masahiro's like, well, yeah, I promised I would keep you informed. And the two of them are just like, okay, well that's good enough. Oh yeah, that's good and great. And so while Charlie and Nikki end up kind of distracting Masahiro, they run off to follow the SWAT team as they're getting into this little bus. And they both the police officers, they flash the badges and they say police observers, like we're coming with you. And we have Masahiro that is telling both Charlie and Nikki that is like, well, hey, I don't have authorization to have you like go on with this SWAT team. And they're like, oh no, you're coming with us anyways. So they make their way to what looks like a casino. That's what this spot seems to look like. And as the SWAT burges in, we find a bunch of Yakuza members, and this then has both Nikki and Charlie looking at one of these Yakuza members like, like that was one of the men from before who had gone on and been one of the fake inspectors. So Nikki starts talking to one of the Yakuzas that he had seen before, and he's like, "Oh, hi, sweetheart. Remember me, don't you?" So, so where's your boss? So this guy goes on and I think ends up spitting in Nikki's face, and so he headbutts him. And Masahiro grabs Nikki here. It's like, well, hey, that's not the proper way we do things. Like, you're a foreigner here, and they have to go on and keep reciting that he's a foreigner here, and this and that. So, and like, hey, this isn't New York. We have rules here. Yeah, whatever. So, so while they go on and while Nikki and Charlie are forced to kind of sit on the sidelines as these police officers are kind of just looking through this place, both Nikki and Charlie spot something that can help them out in this investigation. And so as they find money on this counter, Nikki ends up taking it and leaving with it, to where we have Masahiro that thinks like, oh, these cops are dirty. But if anything, they're looking at this money and they want to do something with it. And what they end up doing with it is they end up burning it. And they end up finding out that, yes, that it is fake money. So, like, it's all like the right thing that they're trying. They know that this is fake money and they're burning it to proving it. And like, Nikki is burning this money on Charlie's lunch and telling him like, well, hey, like I owe you lunch. And Charlie's like, yeah, whatever. So Nikki then makes his way. Nikki and Charlie make their way to Moss as he's going on and doing kendo stick practice. And the bulk of this dialogue here is that Masahiro is to call Nikki a thief and said like, hey, you stole that money. I saw you stole it. And Nikki's like, no, you don't get what I was trying to do. And then he has to kind of prove to him that it's like, no, this money, like this is fake money. And I wanted to like go off to the side and like prove it. So, as well as also Masahiro had spoken to Nikki's like captain in New York and found out that this guy is kind of under suspicion of stealing money. So we then turn around and have Nikki take again another thing of this fake money to Masahiro's superior, and they're like, "Oh, okay. So Nikki was right. Nikki wanted to do something good with this fake money to notice that it was fake. So Nikki is upset with Masahiro because, like, man, you just went on and you just kind of you just ran your mouth and like didn't even bother um to think of anything else. Like that's what makes you guys like who you are. So F you very much for going on and just kind of running and tattletaling um before you get all the facts straight. So now Masahiro and Charlie and Nikki, they're all at this club together, and like here's where Charlie is really wanting to warm up to Moss, and they end up singing this karaoke in the background. They sing together. They sing this Ray Charles song, and like Charlie is giving Moss this tie, and because like Moss is wearing this Kmart tie, and like Charlie is taking a liking to Moss, and it's just like Charlie likes him, so he's gonna be good to him. As Nikki is to go on and just be like, ugh, like uh so uh so la, 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 la. So Nikki goes on and is to see Joyce again. And here's where he goes on and ends up talking to her. And here's where Joyce talks about choosing a side and her own side. And here's where Nikki ends talking about the whole being scared thing. God, there's a lot of dialogue here. um, there's just so much dialogue here. Um, but uh, Joyce is to also talk about how she had been there for 7 years and she still can't even read a lot of the newspaper, and because even like little tiny things could be one thing or be another. So like it's really difficult for even Joyce to maneuver around here, let alone Nikki to be able to like in his time being here to be able to figure out his ways around this place so easily. So but Nikki is also going on and telling Joyce that she needs to choose a side, and eventually she does, even though it's her own side. She does go on and help Nikki at some point. He gives, or she gives him food, and is to go on and just kind of briefly help him out. But so Nikki goes on with Charlie and escapes here, and come to find out like the whole like charges of all the food that they ate was like hundreds of dollars. And Nikki was like, "Oh my god, like we spent a lot of money in there." And Charlie was like, "Hey, don't worry, Masahiro is gonna put it all in the bill of his police department." And Nikki's like, "Okay, great." So here is where we go on to have this motorcyclist who is to kind of rev his engine. Charlie ends up getting his coat out and does the whole Toro Toro thing again, and the motorcyclist ends up grabbing Charlie's coat, and then he realizes like, oh son of a, like he took my coat. And Nikki turns to Charlie. It's like, oh man, hey man, it's fine, it's just a coat. And Charlie's like, no 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 no, like I have my passport in there, like I have things in there, like no, I can't leave without this coat. So Charlie goes chasing after it, and eventually this leads to then Charlie. I had to go on and mutter some obscenity there because a little ticked off, because every once in a while, like, um, I try to like do something, and it takes a while to load. So I get a little ticked off. So Charlie is tracking this guy down to this seemingly like parking garage, it looks like. And as Charlie then finally finds this motorcyclist, and Nikki is kind of chasing behind him, and 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 goes into uh running into this gate, but he sees Charlie there, seemingly feet in front of him. All these motorcyclists start to circle around Charlie. These knives start to come out. Nikki is screaming for Charlie, and slowly but surely, Charlie ends up getting sliced by these samurai swords. And one of the swords ends up chopping into Charlie's head, and now he's dead. So Nikki ends up needing to be comforted by Joyce here, as he is to go on and talk about how Charlie was only 28 and he died right in front of him, and that Charlie should have known better, and this and that. And so uh and how Nikki is to go on and see things for how they really are because of his job, and this. So Masahiro meets up with Nikki later on and is to give his condolences, and Masahiro wants to give Nikki Charlie's stuff. Wants to give him this box with his badge and this and that, and Nikki is looking at Masahiro. It's like, can this wait? And Masahiro's like, no, like, here you go. So as Nikki starts looking through the things, he looks at the badge and he gives this to Masahiro, because it's like, it seems like you and him like really hit it off. So like, I think I should give this to you. And then also, uh, Nikki sees Charlie's gun, and he's like, well, can I keep anything of any of this? And Masahiro's like, yeah, you can keep anything of any of this. And so he's like, well, I'm going to keep his freaking gun. So Masahiro and Nikki make their way to Sato's hideout, and they're looking for some evidence to see where they can go to next. They're trying to follow the bouncing ball here. And Nikki is also, because of him being upset for losing his partner, he wants to go on and wreck house, and just to uh like say stuff like, I hope you have a nice party, and do you feel safe here, and all of this stuff, while he's thrashing and breaking all of this stuff. So breaking everything, like, it's really cool how he's just bashing through all this crap because he's so upset. And it's a very emotional scene here. That's why I love it. And as Nikki finally goes to this one seat, he then all of a sudden is looking at this coffee table that has all these little dots on it, and he's not quite sure what it is, and so he picks it up and finds these dress sequences, these dress little dots that are to be a part of a dress. So that connects him with the woman that he had seen earlier in the club. And it's like, okay, if we find this one girl that was at this club earlier, we can find Sato. So they go on to track down this woman. And they're following her for a good chunk of time here. And at one point, Nikki goes separately as Moss is in this car. So Nikki follows her through this market and is walking Masa when to pull the car around. So the two of them go on and they eat noodles as Nikki doesn't know about eating noodles, as he has to go on and have some random person help him how to better do chopsticks. So, as well as also while they're eating, like Moss is kind of giving Nikki pepper here. So, the bit of conversation here is that is that Nikki is going to be truthful about how he did take the money that the internal affairs are after him for. And Nikki isn't proud about what he took, but like he had bills, he had kids, he had a divorce. So Moss is telling Nikki that's like, well, like your partner, he was a policeman. And if you stole, like you're not only disgracing him, but you're disgracing yourself and me because you had gone on and done that. So Nikki and Moss are in the car together. They're waiting for this woman to leave this environment. So it's like, all right, we got action. Let's go. So they continue to follow this girl. And at one point, she goes into this environment after getting whatever is in her bank. And she switches clothes. And she then exits out of this area. And so Nikki and Moss are watching her. It's like, isn't that the same girl? Yeah, but she has different clothes. Okay, well, like, I guess her disguise wasn't all that quite good enough. So they follow this woman to this seemingly construction site, this boiler room, this mining facility. I don't know what it was called. It has lava in it. It just looks like a boiler room to me. So a bunch of this dialogue that is to go on here is between both Sato and Sagai. So the two of them are going on and they're talking about how Sato wants to be relieved from Sagai's control and wants his own separate uh, uh, syndicate or corporation or whatever away from this guy, and uh, and so Sagai is just kind of upset that Sato wants to go on and do this. So they're also going on and talking about the paper, the money, and they're also going on and talking about the plates. So between this dialogue, we'll eventually deal to later having a truce between the two of them later on. But this is to kind of prepare us for that. So as eventually this leads to after this meeting is kind of adjourned between the two of them, we do have Nikki and Moss trying to get to Sato and now his men, and that leaves then Nikki and Moss to fire upon certain members of Sato's gang, shooting them and trying to chase off Sato, but Sato ends up getting away. So while Nikki is by foot chasing off Sato, he ends up getting arrested by Moss's own police department. They arrest him, and so because Nikki is taking the law into his own hands, Moss's superior is telling now Nikki, it's like, well, hey, we're gonna send you on a plane and get you the f out of here. Like, we don't want you to be involved in this case anymore. Like, plus also like with the chaos that he's just kind of creating here, like, it makes all the sense in the world. So Nikki is now on a plane, going on to at first think that he's just like, well, I guess this is gonna be it. Like, this is gonna be all what's going on. But then Nikki ends up seeing this elevator that he can just go into, and that leads him underneath the plane, and so he sneaks off of it. So this leads Nikki to make his way back to Moss, so he can convince him. It's like, well, hey, like sometimes like you need to just go for it, and try. And so this is all to have Nikki convincing Moss to like, hey, let's go for it, and let's try to get to Sato, and like I need to avenge my partner. So, but as Nikki is to open the door to find where Moss lives, he meets Moss's son, that I guess is very disappointed in him. As well as also there's some argument going on that is like, well, yeah, like my son just kind of doesn't like what I'm doing, because Moss, because of the troubles that he was in with Nikki, he is suspended and he has kind of lost his title. But so as Nikki is to go on and talk to Moss, it's like, well, hey man, like I need your help. Uh, like we need to go on, we need to do this, and so uh, um, I'm trying to figure out what was kind of left if I need to say anything. Um, but Moss ends up turning to Nikki and it's like, well, I can't help you. Um, and Nikki's like, well, we can fix this. And Moss is like, well, you can't fix everything. I'm not like you. I thought I could be like you, but I'm just not. And so the more and more that they talk here, the more that it's just not going anywhere. And Moss is trying to tell Nikki here, it's like, well, hey, I belong to a group, like, uh, and so on and so forth. So, and Nikki is telling Moss, is like, well, hey, you're digging a hole for yourself. Yeah, there's a whole lot of dialogue going on here. There's a whole lot of dialogue. So here's where Nikki goes on and speaks to Joyce, and she hands him a meal, and Nikki's like, oh yeah, I guess you did choose a side after all, and also like Joyce ends up giving Nikki the address of where to find Sagai, and it's at this just kind of golfing area that it goes 3 times a week. So Nikki then goes to this golf area as this guard of Sagai ends up patting him down and then holding him towards Nikki is almost going to fall over and injure himself. So Nikki ends up handing this guard this fake money to where Sagai is like, all right, like bring him over. Like, what does he have to talk about? So come to find out in a lot of this dialogue between Sagai and Nikki, Sagai will go on and state that it's like, well, like the money that you hand me is just now a prototype. If anything, like what we're gonna make is going to eventually be perfected. It's like, so Nikki tells Sagai that it's like, well, hey, you obviously have a problem, and I'm going to be the guy that is to help solve it for you. So like, if you want to go on and you want to tell me where Sato is, like this guy had killed my partner, and like and so I'm sought out to just to take care of your problem for you. So tell me where this guy is, like I'll take him out. So eventually Sagai agrees to all this and is to send Nikki on his merry way by tossing him the shotgun with a couple of rounds with it. As first, like they show him the shotgun and it's empty, and then they throw it at him, and then he picks it up, and then they throw some ammo on him, and like, all right, that's as much as you're gonna get. And so they tell him like, okay, like Sato is gonna come to this complex, this place that like is to be by this farm, and here's your chance. Like if you want this guy, here's where you're gonna get him. So Sagai goes to this farming complex, and Nikki is just kind of waiting, waiting in the woods there, waiting in the wings. So come to find out, the further that Nikki is waiting and waiting, there seems to be some motorcycles there. We also come to find that some of Sato's men is already there to infiltrate this farm. And then we find out the people that are working in the farm are also to be fake farmers, and they're actually just guards there. They're just kind of they're actually just watching the environment to just guard there. So as Nikki is to almost get attacked by one of Sato's men, Moss just comes out of the wings somewhere and attacks this guy, and then turns to Nikki. It's like, well, yeah, sometimes we just gotta go for it. And Nikki's like, yeah, all right, man. Like we're gonna do this. We're gonna work together. So as Nikki uh and Ma start working their way around this farm, Sato makes his entrance to this farm, and is to show one of the plates uh, to like, hey, this is the reason why we're all here. I'm going to show you that I have the plate here. So Sato goes in to speak with Sagai, and Sato ends up asking Sagai, it's like, well, hey, where is the other plate? And Sagai's like, well, like it's in a safe place. So sure it is. So all of this conversation is to lead to like, well, like Sato, because of all the havoc that you've been doing lately, you need to prove to us that like that there's really going to be a truce between the two of us. And Sato ends up being thrown this knife to where he's going to need to cut off his pinky. And after that, or after that, so Nikki and Moss are kind of making their way in this facility, and they end up having to shoot one of the men, and that then leads for Nikki to make his way in to this farm and further go on to kill more people. So as some of Sato's men are going on and finding their guns within their farming equipment and starting to kill people off, Sato finds the guy's hand and stabs into his hand. And here's where we end up getting the all-out gunfight battle, explosions, and all-out war to be had here. So with all these explosions and all these craziness and everything going on here, the big main factor is that Sato is running out of this farm, and Nikki's to chase after him, which is a lead to this motorcycle chase. So as this race is going on, Sato is consistently grabbing his finger and just biting on it, I guess, for maybe pressure, but then also just because of the pain. And So this chase is to eventually lead to a crash, which then has Nikki and Sato fighting it out. Where as one of the motorcycle wheels is continually still rotating, uh, like the two of them are kind of pressing themselves against this wheel, and Sato ends up getting close to getting his head in this wheel, and then eventually Sato grabs Nikki and has a good chunk of his back get chewed away from this motorcycle. But of course, he's wearing like a leather jacket, so what does that really do? So, as they're flipping, flopping, and fighting here, it seems that the advantage is really to Nikki. He's beating the crap out of this guy. And the further and further point here, um, after some choking, some flinging, some fighting, some punching is going on here, is that Nikki gets Sato at a position where Sato could land on this wood sharp piece to get stabbed and get killed. So it's like, well, hey, Sato, do you want to live or do you want to die? So the next thing we see is that Sato is being brought in by Nikki and by Moss here to get arrested. And so after that, they end up getting, Moss ends up getting an award. And then Moss's superior ends up turning to Nikki and saying, well, congratulations. And Nikki ends up saying, thank you. In the crowd of people who are seeing Nikki get this award, Royce is one of them, or Joyce is one of them. And here's where Joyce ends up telling Nikki, it's like, man, like, you're in the news again. Like, so here's where it finally seems that the two of them are going to have some kind of relationship here. And because they kiss. So it's like, is there a possibility that they're going to work something out here? We never know. Uh, and then also, like, Nikki used to talk to Joyce about, like, well, you know, we have like this thing going on here, and we really need to figure that out at some point. So, and Nikki thanks Joyce for really choosing a side here. So now Nikki is to go on and get on a flight to get the heck out of here. And so now, like, weirdly enough, two of them are going on at this airport and they're exchanging gifts. As Nikki is to go on and say, like, well, hey, those money plates were never discovered. So if anyone was to go on and have the right people be able to make some money off these plates, then, like, they could probably retire, right? And Moss is looking at Nikki. It's like, oh man, like, don't tell me you did something dirty. And so they go on and they exchange these gifts. And because Nikki doesn't want to go on and go with Moss all the way to the plane because he's like, you know what, I don't want some sob story, I don't want some sad goodbyes, so I think we should just do it here. So as Nikki walks off, we have Moss that is to open up this gift, and at first Moss just sees this dress shirt and is like, dress shirt, and then he sees the plates and he looks at Nikki and Nikki's like, yeah. Look what I did. And then Moss is like, oh, you son of a bitch. Like, and that's how they finish up the movie. That's how they wrap up the film. So I'm gonna wrap up here so I can get this done and uploaded. And thank you for going on and listening to this. I'm sure you probably didn't watch the whole thing, but regardless, like, I really had to try to figure out how to, like, just squeeze down this movie into way less time, and then also I have to do some stuff after this. So I really need to get this done really quickly. More so than usual when I would just be spouting every single thing that goes on here. I really wanted to get this done quickly. My apologies for the rush. But with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Any future projects that I feel about going on and doing, I feel would go on and probably be at this point a mistake to just go on and state them. I think I've gone on and stated other future projects. Um, at one point, I was almost going to go on and watch Campfire Tales. I started watching that and like, God, this movie is like I've heard of all these stories before in some other project. I've heard about them and like so they were so like boring to me, and I feel like I've heard all these tales before that I'm like it felt like a waste of time to watch that movie. So you guys were almost gonna get a Campfire Tales if that movie was actually good. At some point I want to go on and watch a movie called Full Eclipse because that seems like a movie where they're weaponizing being a werewolf, so that looks interesting. But again, that movie will probably be a horrible schlop of a film that I may just contemplate whether or not reviewing here. And then there's 30 other things that I've probably talked about through other reviews that I probably won't go on and state here because what a waste that'll be to talk about any of those because I've already said them at some point and then I may not get to them. And a lot of people will go on and probably ask me why I chose to review this film. Simply because I wanted a freaking break from all of the skin and all of the other movies that I've been doing lately. That I just wanted something drastically different than what I've been kind of doing, as well as also just needing to get this out. So without a doubt, goodbye everybody. Goodbye everybody.